Hello everyone and welcome back to 2Days Productions. Today, we're going to be talking about whatever happened to Pokemon Stadium. Pokemon Stadium was a series of 3 games, yes that's right, 3 games, on the Nintendo 64, way back during the first 2 generations of the Pokemon games. The original Pokemon Stadium only released in Japan and was a limited version of the Pokemon Stadium that most of us know as Pokemon Stadium. It featured 42 different kinds of Pokemon out of the original 151 and basically was the baseline of Pokemon Stadium. It looks the same, it plays the same, it just didn't have all the features that the full version winded up having. The original Japanese Pokemon Stadium was developed for the Nintendo 64 disk drive, although due to that being pushed back continuously, they decided to just put the game on the actual Nintendo 64, and that was probably a great decision because the Nintendo 64 disk drive failed terribly. It also just so happened to release yesterday, 20 years ago, on August 1st, 1998. Due to the success of Pokemon, not just within Japan, but internationally, Nintendo decided to move forward with an expansion pass for Pokemon Stadium. This was supposed to include all the other features and a couple of extra features that we didn't actually wind up getting of the Pokemon Stadium we have internationally. Of course, this was also slated to be on the Nintendo 64 disk drive, but still, that was being pushed forward and forward, so they decided to just make it a sequel and put it as its own thing. The reason this was done is because Nintendo didn't want to miss out on Pokemania. As many of you know, especially those of you who grew up in the States in the 90s, when Pokemon released, it became a widespread thing. Everybody, even more than it is today, it was crazy amounts of people. Think about when Pokemon Go was released originally, that kind of mentality. And everyone was worried it was a fad, including the Pokemon Company and Nintendo. So obviously, seeing that this series was doing so well, Nintendo wanted to strike the iron while it was hot and get Pokemon Stadium released out into the international territories. Pokemon Stadium released here in the US on February 29th, 2000, and it was a major success. So of course, the inevitable sequel, Pokemon Stadium 2, or Pokemon Stadium Gold and Silver in Japan, was released in the following year, featuring Pokemon from both the original versions, as well as Pokemon from the newly released Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver. The main appeal of the Pokemon Stadium series was to allow players to battle Pokemon in 3D on a television screen. Now, it's easy to look back in 2018 and say, really, that was the main appeal of these games? Yeah, Pokemon back then existed as 2D colorless sprites. You need to think about back to the first generation of Pokemon in that era. Nowadays, all of our Pokemon sprites are in 3D. Our mobile games are even in 3D, so yeah, it's not that big of a deal, but back then it was a huge, huge thing. It also is just a novelty of being able to play Pokemon on a big screen and on your TV as opposed to the tiny little Game Boy. And while it did feature the beloved regular battle system of Pokemon, and that was of course the main bread and butter of the game, it did feature some other things. Free Battle was your regular Pokemon battles, how you would play with a friend casually. Stadium battles implied rules from actual league tournaments and stuff like that to give more of a competitive aspect to it. And then of course, Gym Leader Castle pitted you against the gym leaders, their 3 apprentices each, and the Elite Four and your rival in the sort of like tower type battling game. You would battle 3 apprentices, a gym leader, move forward. All of those, of course, are your regular Pokemon battles, exactly what you would expect from a Pokemon game. However, some of the side modes, like the Game Boy Tower, allowed you to play your Pokemon games on your television, just like the Super Game Boy for the Super Nintendo, for example. And there was also the Kids Club. The Kids Club featured 9 mini-games that featured your Pokemon. So stuff like Licky Tongue and having to feed Licky Tongue the correct foods, and if you messed up, you'd lose a point. That kind of stuff. Mario Party-esque minigames. In Pokemon Stadium 2, the minigame section, and as well as everything else, was a bit more refined. But the minigame section is really want to pull attention to because I really think that this made the most transitions in that. Instead of having just 9 minigames, it now had 12 all-new minigames, as well as a minigame challenge mode and a quiz mode. Pokemon Stadium also spawned 2 sequel series, Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon Battle Revolution. Now, Pokemon Coliseum was the natural progression of the Pokemon Stadium series. It featured a robust storyline, as well as its sequel, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, but they featured robust storylines. They still had the competitive aspect of Pokemon, and of course, in the Ruby and Sapphire era, Pokemon was still 2D, so the appeal of the 3D battles was still a thing. Pokemon Battle Revolution, however, in my opinion, was a step back. It no longer featured the storyline mode. It just had stadium battles, which was kind of like the Gym Leader Castle, but even a little bit dumbed down in my opinion. While it did feature more battles, it just wasn't as much fun as single player. Pokemon Battle Revolution was more used, especially here on YouTube, for Wi-Fi battles. So people would, instead of playing on a 3DS, you just play on the Wii, and the sprites look a lot better, obviously, and everything. It was a good idea, but it is disappointing that it did not retain a lot of the stuff that made Pokemon Stadium so great. And notably, neither of these two series brought back minigames. The minigames stopped after Pokemon Stadium 2, so that's the biggest unfortunate thing in my opinion. Pokemon Stadium was a novelty. Pokemon Stadium existed in an era where 2D sprites were the main line in the part of the way the Pokemon was going to go. There was nothing to indicate that Pokemon and the era of the Game Boy was going to move into a 3D space, so having a 3D version on the N64 made a lot of sense. It was new, it was fresh, it was something that surprised players and something that made them look into it a different light. However, nowadays we don't really need that anymore. Pokemon Stadium is now outdated. We've expanded past this. Like I said, Pokemon games like Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon already feature 3D battling and 3D sprites in a main series Pokemon game, so you don't need a secondary version. And especially with Pokemon now making the jump over to home console with Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, as well as next year's Pokemon Generation 8 games, it seems like there's zero need for a Pokemon Stadium game, unfortunately. When prompted about the possibility of seeing a new Pokemon Stadium game, Junichi Masuda responded with the fact that it was no longer surprising or impactful to see Pokemon in 3D. For a new Pokemon Stadium game to be made, it must innovate in a different new way. Now, unfortunately, all these signs point to there never being another Pokemon Stadium game. In fact, the only way I could see Pokemon Stadium, or at least one part of it, living on is with minigames. Now, I'm not sure about any of you, but for me, minigames are one of the most impactful things about Pokemon Stadium. I remember very heated competitions between me and my cousins playing that game, and it was a lot of fun. So, what if they potentially released a new minigame collection similar to either the WarioWare or the Mario Party series? This is really the only way I think we'll get anything resembling something like Pokemon Stadium, but even then, would that really be Pokemon Stadium? That was one mode. The battling is just going to continue in main series Pokemon, and maybe something like Pokken Tournament will feature minigames and will feel more like Pokemon Stadium, but I honestly don't think there's any chance of this coming back. Unfortunately, it seems like Pokemon Stadium is going to be something that's going to remain in Pokemania's nostalgic past. Something left for a new generation of Pokemon fans to discover and fall in love with, just like we did back in the 2000s. Now, it's not impossible that Pokemon Stadium will never return, I just don't find it likely based on Junichi Masuda's comments, as well as just the general need for that series. But who knows? Maybe a young fan is discovering this for the first time right now. Maybe they'll play these games and fall in love with them and think of such a great idea that one day Pokemon Stadium will return to the mainstream audience as a new Nintendo game. However, that's just my opinion. Let me know that in the comments. Is Pokemon Stadium a part of Pokemon's past like I think, or is a new game waiting on the horizon for all of us to enjoy and explore? Remember to like, comment, favorite, subscribe, do all that fun stuff down below in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time.